not spectacular at all points. I think there was a huge amount of pressure on him tonight. I feel like he hasn't won for, well, coming up to 3 years in November. And I think at times he boxed with sometimes the apprehension that what was on the line and the pressure that was on the line as well. I liked certain parts. I liked his engine. I liked his jab early on. I think Jermaine Franklin came to survive in the back half of the fight after he got hurt, which made it difficult. I thought he had a good chin. I thought AJ took some decent shots. Needed to be more aggressive, in my opinion. I think he'll be a little bit frustrated. But that's also his third trainer in 3 fights. So for me, it was good to get the 12 rounds, and hopefully he can go straight back to camp and keep working.
I know you talked about Tyson Fury as negotiations after this fight. I spoke to Derek James, he said he needs 2 more fights with AJ. If that's the case, who would you want AJ to be with?
I think Dillian Whyte's a good fight. I think that the problem is always going to be the public will want the biggest fights that are out there, and that's the Tyson Fury fight. The sensible thing to do is to keep improving with Derek James. You can't just let a fighter have one fight and then jump into the biggest fight. But at the same time, we realise that certain fights you get the chance to make them at certain times. And maybe that is the time with Tyson Fury. But I think Derek's right in a sensible world. Of course, he wants as much time. It's just a case of who to fight. And I think Dillian Whyte would be a good choice.
Eddie, do you believe that the fact that he's changed trainers a few times now, that maybe that has contributed to the problem, and maybe that apprehension because of the changing styles from Rob McCracken and then obviously Robert Garcia as world trainer again? Do you think that's sort of part of it? And are you sort of against all these trainer changes?
Yeah, I'm always against multiple trainer changes, but also for giving them a chance.
Yeah.
I mean, Robert Garcia came in as a bit of a stopgap. It didn't really work out, but it was a better performance against Usyk. Now Derek James did 12 rounds with him tonight. He'll go away. He'll think there's loads of stuff to work on with Anthony. And I feel like the key is to keep him active. I've said he must fight 3 times this year, and now is the moment where us and the team and Derek have to get on top of that. He goes away, does all his commercial work now and stuff like that. Then next thing he's had a holiday. Then next thing we're in May. Then next thing he gets into camp in June, and then we can't really fight till September. And that's for me what we've got to get on top of now. Try and get him to do his work, then get back to Texas and get back to camp with Derek.
What did you see in there that did impress you? I mean, it looked like from the offset his jab was just ramrod and he couldn't really sit him for most of the fight.
I thought the defence was good. I thought his feet were good. I thought he took some decent shots and didn't look hurt at all in the fight. I thought his engine was great. Normally at times he might look a bit tired in a fight. I thought he looked like he had plenty of energy. Just more, more combinations. Probably work more on the inside, use his size on the inside as well. But after, like I said, Franklin in the back end of the fight seemed to come to survive.
What did you make of the altercation at the end?
I don't know what happened. I think there was the last sort of 20 seconds were quite lively and quite aggressive, and I think maybe there was a headbutt or something went in, and neither guy was particularly happy after the bell or Bellew.
It showed on the board that there was like 8 or 9 seconds left, and then the bell went. So I think maybe that's where the confusion was, because the ref was sort of looking around and didn't seem to know what had happened. But there was an altercation obviously with Bellew. How much of that did you see?
What, with Bellew?
Yeah.
No, I asked him. I think he just said that the trainer went for AJ or something, and he shouted something, and then he shouted something at Bellew, and probably the wrong person to shout something at.
You've obviously been on this journey with Anthony Joshua, and it's an emotional journey for you. It's one that you invested in from the beginning to where he is now. How proud are you from how far he's come, the ups, the downs, and he's on that building block again to trying to get the big fights and become world champion? Yeah,
I think you wake up tomorrow morning and you go, thank God for that, Anthony Joshua won. But he won't be over the moon with his performance. But I think, and people will be probably overcritical of his performance, but there was also a lot of pressure. Like I said, he hasn't won since November 2020, and a defeat tonight would have been the end of the road. And everyone keeps asking him, is a defeat the end of the road? And like he said, yes, it is. So that was what was on the line tonight.
Your expectations of AJ's performance, like I said, you've watched him all the way from the start of his career to now. How did you find his performance in comparison to obviously the last 2 or 3 fights that he's had?
different styles. I mean, you know, Usyk's a southpaw, very tricky. Franklin's tricky. I don't think that's a good style for AJ, a short fighter that moves well. I thought Franklin's jab was really good, but then I feel like he went into his shell and he was holding a lot, Franklin, as well. Josh was holding too, but Franklin more so in the back end of the fight. I would have liked to have seen AJ put combinations together, and I was trying to tell him, although it's not my job, but just as a fan, to walk him back to the ropes and keep him there. When he had him backed up, he looked very dangerous, but he was giving Franklin too much ground, giving him too much confidence, and that's what we said, to not give Franklin confidence. And for me, I would like to see him back him up more and let those combinations go on the ropes.
From a fan's point of view, AJ seemed to actually warm up after round 7. Kind of like the round when we usually get a bit nervous with him, but we saw a stronger engine, and we saw him start to get more aggressive as the rounds went on. Your thoughts on that?
Yeah, that was one of the pleasing points, was sometimes, and I think that's definitely in his head about his tank, because we know that he's thrown so many punches before and he's a big guy that his engine has wilted, but maybe he could have left a little bit more in the ring without worrying about his engine. But I think after tonight, the confidence will be there that he's got more than enough to go the distance.
The energy, final question, the energy from the crowd. I saw AJ at the presser. You kind of like seemed a little bit pissed off with the UK. He was kind of like saying, I can't wait to get back to Dallas. He went out there, that crowd was electric. People were happy to see him. How do you think that affected his performance?
I think it's just the criticism. I mean, look, you'll see tomorrow, there'll be loads of criticism. You know, he came back, like I said, he hasn't won since November 2020. Solid, not spectacular, but it will be, oh, you know, you can imagine the headlines, and that's probably, he'll read them and go, why do I bother? You know, but that's all right. It's, yeah, it comes with the territory. But I think, you know, he'll want to go back to work. I think he won't want to be around any negativity or any criticism. He's just focusing on himself. He'll be frustrated with the performance. I mean, you'll hear from him shortly, but he knows he can do better. He knows he can be more aggressive, but there was a lot of pressure tonight.
Eddie, if Bloomsbury make an approach for the Fury fight to happen next, would you entertain that?
It's up to AJ and to Derek. AJ's answer would be 100% yes. He was willing to take that fight in December, which was definitely the wrong time to take the fight. Derek James is 100% right. We should give him more time with Derek James. But at the same time, every time he fights, there's a big crowd, there's a big purse, you know, and people are going to want the right opponent. In an ideal world, sometimes in a trainer's ideal world, the opponent wouldn't be enough to satisfy the, you know, the broadcasters and the gate and stuff like that. But it's got to get the mix right between who and how much, you know. But I don't think the public are necessarily going to want him to have another 2 fights at Jermaine Franklin level. They're going to want to see him step up, if that's Dillian Whyte, if that's Tyson Fury, if that's Wilder. And, you know, those guys will fancy their chances against AJ because they'll think, oh, you know, it's a chance, he's not the fighter that he was, etc., etc. But I think AJ will box better against a high level of opposition, particularly people that are coming to win.
Quick word on Conor Benn. He came today and seemed to get a lot of love from the fans. Loads. I mean, they're fantastic. Good for him. You know, not good for him, but good for him as well. But good for him. You know, and whatever you think of the situation, he has had an absolutely horrific time. Horrific, right? So tonight was great, and I think he'll feel really good. I know he had a bit of drama with TalkSport or whatever, but, you know, at the end of the day, there's no point sitting indoors. You've got to go out and front everybody, and that's what he done tonight, and I think he'll have a spring in his step.
Eddie, there's always an expectancy when Anthony Joshua comes out to fight, and the expectancy was for this, that because he came in at a career heaviest, that he would go in there and potentially blow him out in the first 4 rounds. Are you more tentative now putting him in with the Tyson Fury off the back of him going 12 rather than him going in there and getting the knockout?
I think he'd be an underdog against Tyson Fury for sure. And I don't think it was a performance that is going to make people think that he can definitely beat Tyson Fury, but I know he can box much better than that. I know against an opponent that's coming to win, he'll box much better than that. And I know next time he fights, he'll box much better than that. So, like I said, that fight's all about timing. And it's like, how long do you wait? If it's there, then it will be difficult not to take it.
You would take that over a Dillian
Not up to, I mean, look, for me, like everybody else, yeah. But, you know, I think we can't just keep going, train a 1 fight into a big fight, you know. So it'll be up to Derek to sit down with AJ. But like I said, you know, in answer to that question, it's difficult to have those fights and drive the same interest. What might be right for the development of his career might not be right for the commercial numbers. So you've got to get the balance right.
Eddie, I'm sure you've seen the article from The Guardian today. We have actually talked about your conduct in the past in regards to previous drug tests, Chavez Jr., Demetrius Andrade, Joe Saunders and everything else. Do you want to give a response back in regards to
Yeah, I mean, it was a hatchet job from Don McRae. I've already written to him because it was a snide piece. Because he never asked me for a comment based on what people had said or incidents. He came up to me on a few separate occasions. If you want to talk about the Chavez fight, Chavez was not my fighter. The contract was not signed for Chavez against Danny Jacobs. Nevada Commission turned up to test Chavez, who hadn't signed any agreement for the fight, wasn't under any testing program, and basically said, "What are you doing here?" And said, "I'm not being tested, I haven't even signed the contract. Not my fighter, not my responsibility." From there, Las Vegas had an investigation. Chavez said, "Whatever, I'm not fighting in Vegas, you can all do one." We made the fight in Phoenix, and he didn't want to work with VADA. So we asked for a reputable body, and I asked for the opinion of Victor Conte, who now seems to be this saviour of sport, biggest drug cheat in the history of sport, and now seems to have a vendetta against me. I've never even met him. So, Leon Margolis, I texted him earlier, he said some nice words. He says, "I'm the most arrogant, hated man in the industry." He texted me, he goes, "But I do like you. They're all schnides." Do you know what I mean? But that article was a joke because he never even asked me to comment on what was said. And that's why I deleted his tweet, if you go and check what Don McRae did. He's a fantastic writer. So that's that situation. What was the other situation? I mean, you're free to ask me about any comments that Don McRae made in that piece.
He referenced in the piece, obviously previous interviews and things like that. I know they all get thrown at you all the time, the things you said in the past with regards to the failed test, that obviously Conor Benn wouldn't return to action until he was clear, or at least till he's had that due process. Now it looks like he's going to, by all accounts from your words and other people, trying to get him out in June. But I don't feel like we've had that conclusion yet.
Well, you've had that conclusion from the body and the programme that found him guilty. Or sorry, that he had an adverse finding with. He went through that process. I said to Robert Smith tonight, "We need to meet ASAP." Yeah, okay. I said, "Do you want to try and move forward with this or not?" Not really. I don't feel like he'll get any kind of fair crack of the whip, to be honest with you. But nothing changes, in my opinion, of VADA. They are the premium testing agency. But at the same time, he went to the people who control the testing. They have reinstated him in the rankings. Commissions are happy to license Conor Benn to move forward to fight because of the process that he went through with the WBC. Should he go through the I don't know how many times I have to say this. Should he go through the process with the BBFC? Yes. Can we get them to everybody drop their ego and sit down and have a sensible conversation? I hope so. I asked Robert Smith tonight to do that. Hopefully he comes back to me and allows that ball to start rolling.
Eddie, that's the clean boxing programme test from the first test. What about the second test?
The second test is a VADA test as part of the camp, and WBC ruled over that as well. They've been in a situation where they made a ruling, reinstated him. When we spoke to the British Boxing Board of Control during this process, they told us that we acknowledge. I said to Robert Smith said to me, "We don't acknowledge UK VADA testing, so I don't know what we're going to do." This is probably why they took 5 weeks. They should have had a hearing during that process. When Dillian White failed a test, and UCAD, yes, Rob, we know, they had a hearing within 2 days. Yet they had that information for 5 weeks and didn't have a hearing. Now they want to have a hearing. I agree. I think they should have a hearing.
Robert Smith said that he was served with a cease and desist.
Not from us.
From Conor Benn's
No, he had WBC confirmed to the British Boxing Board of Control that under their process, the test results are confidential. That has nothing to do with making a decision. The ruling that the British Boxing Board of Control came up with was that it's not in the best interest of the sport. They could have made that decision on the day. You tell me. They've received 2 failed tests. Should they have stopped the fight when they received that information?
In my opinion?
Yes.
Yes, but I didn't get served with a cease
No,
and
but
desist.
no. No, Rob, a cease and desist. You've got a decision to make. They made their decision under that ruling. That ruling is so wide, they can make that decision at any time they want. What you say? They're scared to make a decision? It's bullshit. Anyone else? For the 8th month, for every day for 8 months?
Do you feel like there's a bit of a witch hunt against you? You're obviously defending yourself on TalkSport. You mentioned there's articles been written about you. From your point of view, do you feel like sort of...
What do you think?
Asking you.
What do you think?
Asking you.
There was an article today, there wasn't one mention, I'm not even going to say, I mean, you know, you lot know. Frank Warren sits on TalkSport, not one mention about, you know what I'm saying. So, of course.
Do you feel like, I spoke to Carl Sutherland yesterday at the Wasserman show. He feels obviously hard done by, and he didn't want to answer any questions because he said they had no communication. He says, no one gave me a call about anything, we weren't told that stuff on time. Do you think they were a bit hard done by in terms of communication?
I think Carl Sutherland spoke to his fighter and wanted the fight to progress. But we said, we have to wait for the board's decision. The board went quiet, they disappeared for a week, they popped back, they disappeared for 5 days, and on Wednesday, they cancelled the fight. And as I've said to you, the one mistake I made was coming out, talking to you lot, and having the fucking raving hump, with Calla also having the raving hump, wanting the fight to proceed, as did Chris Eubank Jr., and then we sat in their office and we said, we cannot continue with this fight, or even try to. So we have to take our medicine, we understand the decision. As I've said before, I'll say it again, the right decision, 100% the right decision from the British Boxing Board of Control. Why did it take 5 weeks? You can hide behind letters, you can hide behind whatever you want. If you want to criticise me for waiting for the board's decision, I think you might want to criticise the board for not making a decision for 5 weeks.
I'll speak to Robert Smith, I'll speak to him.
Well, okay. Well, he speaks to everybody else. Might not like you. Be the first good bit of judgment he's had. Anybody else? Fucking whatever you want. Come on.
Gervonta Davis, Ryan Garcia.
Yeah, Gervonta Davis. Fuck
Free
him.
on his own. I mean, you must be delighted with that.
The thing is, it's not a hatchet job, but we don't want to acknowledge Anthony Joshua on April the 1st, April the 8th, Bam Rodriguez going for a 2-division world championship, plus Ford against Magdaleno, plus unified world championship with Akhmadaliev. 2 weeks later in Cardiff, one of the best cards we've ever seen, top to bottom, Rakimov against Cordina, great card as well. Then we go to Guadalajara. Oh, by the way, Tank against Ryan Garcia is part of your subscription as well. Then we go to Guadalajara for the homecoming against Britain's John Ryder. Right, then we've got Katie Taylor fighting in Dublin for the first time ever, fighting 2 undisputed champions. And then tonight we announce Wood Lara. And you don't think it's a hatchet job, but that's not a great schedule. Who is putting on a schedule like that? Quiet now, aren't you?